it's hard to overstate just how close we came to losing our democracy on January 6th. And now we're getting a closer look at the role a sitting U.S. Senator, Ted Cruz, played in the plot. The Washington Post examined Cruz's actions between Election Day and January 6, 2021. According to the Post, Cruz's actions, quote, showed just how deeply he was involved working directly with Trump to concoct a plan that came closer than widely realized to keeping him in power. As Cruz went to extraordinary lengths to court Trump's base and lay the groundwork for his own potential 2024 presidential bid, he also alienated close allies and longtime friends who accused him of abandoning his principles. Now, Cruz's actions are reportedly of interest to the January 6th committee. Of course they are. Joining me now for more is Molly Jong-Fast, who's a contributing writer to The Atlantic. So, Molly, you tweeted about this right as the story broke and hit right on why this is important. Help us understand the role Ted Cruz played in this particular exchange between him and Eastman and how their relationship is relevant to what happened on January 6th.
So Ted Cruz is a senator, and he decided to overturn the election results, and he concocted this very complicated plan, which never could have worked. But I think the most important, sort of the most odd part of the whole thing is here's a guy who Trump has degraded and called his wife ugly, and he wants to overturn democracy for him. I mean, it's just kind of incredible. But they set it up, they set it in motion. They got Mo Brooks involved, and they decided they were going to do these fake electorate. I mean, it just sort of mushroomed into anything they could throw at the wall in the end. But I think why it's important, obviously, is because we have a sitting senator who tried to, unsuccessfully, but did try a coup.
I mean, it's so strange, that sentence, that we're at the point where we say that sentence out loud and everybody just is calm about it. But here's what one former appeals court judge told the Washington Post. Once Ted Cruz promised to object, January 6th was all but foreordained because Cruz was the most influential figure in Congress willing to force a vote on Trump's claim that the election was stolen. I think this is an important piece of the story. I didn't understand the relationship that went back decades with John Eastman, but I do remember the moment where Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz said that they were going to object. And that's when things shifted. So can we think about, or can you help us understand, rather, how we should think about Ted Cruz in the context of what we actually saw leading up to and including on January 6th, and how members of Congress like Cruz may end up fitting into this larger conspiracy that we are still learning about, alleged conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because you had Trump refusing to say he had lost, and then that went on to Republicans deciding, I mean, you remember the day after the election was lost, the Republicans said, well, we're just humoring him and it's fine and no one thinks it's going to lead to anything and just let the guy have a little fun. You know, he's got an ego. And it, it's funny because it's like this whole time Republicans have been scared of Trump. And so they've just kept, letting him do a little more and a little more. And they didn't want to lose the base, right? Because the base loved Trump. So what happened was a couple of senators and a couple of congressmen decided, well, we're going to object. It's kind of performative. It's not going to necessarily mean anything, but we know that it will make the base happy and it will make Trump happy. And Trump sort of seized onto that and went into a kind of, fugue state for those 2 months and started throwing anything he could against the wall with overturning the election. And soon, with Trump, he kind of starts to believe his own myth. And by January, I think he thought he won. And there were enough people who were craven enough to go along with it that it set him up to, and he had all these supporters who were being told, like, the election is stolen. What you saw, you didn't see. Fox fired the decision desk people who made the call that was the correct call. I mean, everywhere in MAGA world, you could see that these far-right figures were telling them that the election was stolen. So, of course, they thought that this was, I mean, I'm not defending it in any way, but I'm just saying this is the natural end of that story.
One of the things I think is important to think about in this moment, Molly, is the fact that Ted Cruz was doing this because he has his own presidential ambitions, which I find funny because I guess he thought if he kept Trump in power, 2024, Trump's still the president. Obviously, he wouldn't run for re-election. That's a big assumption, right? Because Trump said he was going to stay in power forever. We forget he said that, but he did. And you know, assuming he would endorse Ted Cruz after he had supported him in this effort so that he could run for president. But I also think about the fact that it's quite disqualifying in America to have allegedly worked to overturn an American election with the ambition of leading American democracy. Do you think this is disqualifying for Ted Cruz, who has presidential ambitions, that allegedly he worked to subvert democracy?
I mean, these people who tried to overturn the election should be removed from office. Like, this is not a difficult idea. You know, this is what should be happening. And the fact that it hasn't is kind of insane in my mind. And if you looked at other countries, this would happen. So I would say that I think ultimately, you know, Democrats need to do more to protect democracy, right? If they don't do it, this is on them. They control all three houses. They may not control it by a very large margin, but they can certainly have people testifying. They can certainly have hearings. They can certainly hold these people accountable. The DOJ, I mean, you have these judges writing, saying that, you know, Trump may be criminally culpable. There certainly are ways to hold people accountable. And if Democrats are afraid, this could end up, I mean, once Republicans, if theoretically they win the House, we could be looking at, you know, no more of this kind of ability to hold people in check. And it's, I think, quite scary.
It is scary, but I think a lot in the past couple of weeks, Molly, about how Ukrainians are risking their lives to defend their democracy. And if Democrats are too afraid to have an open primetime hearing to defend our democracy, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't be in charge. Just saying. You should lead when you're in charge. Molly Jong-Fast, thank you so much for being here. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.